Hello, my name is Sean Policino. Welcome to the real world of real estate. Today, I'm going to go through my process of writing offers. This is just one of the things that we do as an agent. And, there's lots of work that comes out of lead generation. If you lead generate the right way, then you're going to find people that want to look at homes on the internet. We're going to want to go look at homes in person and hopefully eventually get to the place where they write an offer. And so I took a client out this weekend. We looked at several homes and we're going to write an offer on 2 properties. Her name is Jessie. And I'm going to have on as a guest one of my new agents in my organization. His name is Kyle Scott. I'm mentoring him. And so he's going to be on there asking some questions from the perspective of a new agent. Here's our intro. Check us out on the other side. I'm glad you joined us. We're going to get into how to write an offer. Talk to you in a bit. All right, hey Kyle. So we're going to go through an offer today and show you how to write one and kind of the process that goes along with that. Kyle's a new agent here with EXP, and I'm his mentor. And he's literally just started, got his license, and we had our first conversation yesterday. And he's in the property management space, a little bit different than the real estate side that we're in, is representing buyers and sellers and investors in the purchase of or sale of real property. And he's been on the management side of that. So people that own investment properties, whether it be a single family home or a condo or even multi-unit. And so what made you decide to come over to this side?
Well, I suppose income potential, but also too, yeah. I mean, property management, like you said, it is adjacent to sales, and a lot of people, when they're deciding whether or not they want to rent their income property out, there's always a question about whether or not they want to buy or sell, or whether they want to keep it as an income property, and also kind of just knowing what those decisions would look like from a sales perspective can even help that aspect of my business as well. So just getting more familiar with the mind space of a buyer or a seller.
Sure. So just broadening your ability to help clients in the real estate space as a total. Cool. Well, writing offers is a big part of it, obviously. And, so we've actually gone out this past weekend and we showed this client, Jessie, who we're going to write the offer for today. We showed her several properties, and in this situation, she is actually writing an offer at $508,000 on 2 different condos. We're going to just take one of the condos here and go through that process. Now, this market is pretty crazy. So there's I think 6 offers on the property we're going to write here, and so this is the MLS we're looking at here. And so I'm going to go to her cart, which you can see here under carts. And now your MLS probably looks a little different because I know you're part of the Pasadena MLS, and this is the Southland Regional, so SRAR, Southland Regional Association of Real Estate, which uses ChrisNet, and I know yours probably looks a little different, but I'm sure you probably have carts as well. A cart is something the client can't see, only we can see, but we use it kind of as a virtual desktop where we keep the properties that that we're potentially working on. So you see Jessie DeVera here, and then the properties that we are talking about here is this one on Balboa and this one on Sherman Way. These are the 2 properties that she's interested in. Mm-hmm. You can see one is listed at $499,000, the other one's listed at $529,000. They both have multiple offers. This one has 4 offers on it currently, and they're actually in the process of countering those offers and we haven't even gotten our offer submitted yet. They're already in the process of countering those offers. So we've got to move quickly on getting that offer submitted. This one here is a little bit different. They're actually presenting offers on Thursday, so we have time to get the offer in. But you can see how this one is priced at $499,000. These condos are very similar in size. They're I think I actually got the wrong. No, that's right. 2 bedroom, 3 bath condos. 1,175 square feet, and this one's 1,000. So pretty similar in shape, but they're in a similar area. One is Reseda, one is Lake Balboa as well. So you'd think the price would be pretty similar. One is priced at $499 because that agent is using a lower pricing strategy where they actually price it low, hoping to get a lot of offers. And so she's already got 6 on the table, and all of those offers are coming in at over list price. We're actually writing our offer probably not high enough, but this particular client, she's brand new into this process of buying a home, and it's interesting, the dynamic there. She's proved up to 600,000, but and she liked both of these on a scale of 1 to 10. One was a 9. The property at 529 was a 9 on her scale of 1 to 10, and the property at 499 was actually a 10 on her scale of 1 to 10. So couldn't really get any better as far as the different. When I always ask clients feedback when they're looking at the properties, hoping that they can see the difference between a 7 on a scale or 10 on the scale. And of course, I'm educating them during the process of, that they need to compete. And so you're probably saying, well, okay, well, we're on this video here. Why, how to write an offer. Why are we talking about all this? Because when you write an offer, there's the difference between a really clean offer and one that's not written well to where it has a less chance of getting accepted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So things like contingency periods is a way that you can shrink the periods, makes it cleaner. Obviously, price is important. So if you make an offer and you make that offer for the highest possible price, and you beat the other offers in price, well, then obviously that's a big determining factor which one gets accepted, right? The seller is looking at the price probably more than anything. But they do look at other things, like, for example, this offer on Sherman Way. She wants to have time after close of escrow to move. She wants at least 14 to 21 days of what we call rent back, but she doesn't want to pay any rent. She wants free rent back. So basically, it's just the buyer has to be willing to allow her to stay in the property. So I spoke to Jessie, my client, and she is willing. In fact, her lease is not up until July 20th, so she could give her as much as a month without charging her. She understands that the whole free rent back, and that's a negotiating point, right?
Sure.
I ask questions to the listing agent, what is important, what needs to be in the offer to make it look strong. And we talked about the bidding war back and forth and how my client really didn't want to get into a bidding war. She said her seller isn't really excited about putting anybody through that, so that's a good thing. She said that the overall terms are going to be looked at as well as the price, but the overall terms. So the downfall to my client's situation is that she doesn't want to go over 508, which is $8,000 over the list price, which isn't a lot, right? At 499, coming in at 508, knowing that the other one is priced at 530 and they already have offers at 550. And the market, go ahead.
The information you had mentioned that the offers are all over the listing price. Did you get that information from the listing agent?
Yeah, so I called ahead of time before writing the offers, and I found out from both listing agents. And I know I don't want to be too confusing here. We got 2 different properties. We're going to write offers on both. For the example of the video here, and the sake of your time, I'm going to only go through one, because if we write one, then I'm going to show you how we'll copy that and then write the second one. And then all we'll have to do is tweak the terms, when we write the second one, because we went through the first one, and we'll lay out all the guidelines, all the different variables that are in the offer. So yes, I made 2 phone calls to both agents and tried to find out what the current status is on the property. And the one on Sherman Way explained to me that they have, 6 offers on the table. They're not presenting offers until Thursday. The offers are over list price, but she said not around the 525 range. And then that the client wants that rent back, that free rent back of 21 days. That's a big deal to her. So obviously we're gonna write the offer as clean as possible, but we're gonna take those things in consideration. The one on Balboa told me she has 4 offers. Yeah, 6 offers on Sherman Way, 4 offers on Balboa. but the offers on Balboa are over list price. They've already countered the offers. They're a little bit further along in the process with the selection of an offer. We still have time to get our offer in, so we want to write the offer as clean as possible. And there's an offer guideline supplement on the MLS. I'll show you where that is.
Okay.
That the listing agent on Balboa has put out there to make it easier for the agents to write offers as clean as possible. So we're going to look at that offer supplement as well. But she said that they're hoping to sign off on an offer today. So we have to move really quickly on that particular offer. And that they're already, she didn't tell me exactly what they had in offers, but she said that the offers are approaching the 550 range.
Okay.
So the one on Sherman Way is actually a much nicer condo. So you would think that somebody that's going to live in Reseda would probably look in Balboa as well.
Yeah.
So the buyers that were out there in a competition against, they've probably looked at both.
Mm-hmm.
And if they wrote an offer on one, they're going to probably write an offer on the other. The one on Sherman Way is a nicer property. It has an extra workout space where there's a gym set up. It has hardwood floors throughout, where the Balboa one has a mixture of hardwood and carpet.
Mm-hmm.
And the flooring is a little funky. It's different types of flooring. And the unit is just a nicer unit. It's cleaner, the one on Sherman Way. So you'd think that one has the propensity to go to 550 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to our client and had a conversation with them about the different parts of the two properties. And her and her husband are just stuck on writing an offer at 508. So both of these offers are not likely to go anywhere. I mean, I'm going to do my best to try to get the listing agent to consider our offer over the others.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unfortunately, it is possible that all of the other offers may not be willing to do that 21-day free rent back, and we're willing to do a month. Mm-hmm. So that could be the deciding factor, but I doubt it. I mean, we're probably going to get outbid on the price, and it's just going to make our offer look weaker.
Okay.
So buyers today because we're in such a strong seller's market, buyers today are willing to do things like let the seller stay there for a month. They're willing to shorten their contingency periods. So we're gonna do that too on ours. We're gonna shorten our contingency periods. We could write our offer without an appraisal contingency, which I'm going to go ahead and do that as well, because if we get our appraisal done within the inspection period, so if we do a 10-day inspection period, we can order our appraisal on a rush and get that back within the 10-day period. So as long as we get it back within the 10-day period and we give the lender an opportunity to review it and sign off on it, we don't need an extra contingency for appraisal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So that's a little trick that not a lot of agents know. That think about it. The appraisal contingency just says that the buyer's going to do an appraisal, the lender's going to review that appraisal, and if the appraisal comes in low, then the price becomes a negotiation again. That's what the appraisal contingency says.
Okay.
And it's typically 17 days on the appraisal contingency. What we're going to do is we're going to say, look, we'll write it without an appraisal contingency, saying that our offer is non-contingent upon appraisal, which makes our offer look stronger. We're still going to do an appraisal, but we're going to do it within the 10-day window that we have for a property inspection.
Mm-hmm.
So that 10-day window for property inspection is where the buyer has the right to bring in a physical inspection. They can do a termite inspection. They can do whatever inspections they want. Sometimes they do a main sewer line inspection. And they also have the opportunity to review the seller's disclosures, and then also, make sure that the schools are, the right schools for them. They have the opportunity to check the neighborhood for sexual predators. Anything that would be due diligence related that falls in that 10-day window. The standard is 17 days, but in this market, we're seeing those get shrunk to 10 anyways. So we're just going to go ahead and shrink those ahead of time.
without the contingency, are they still so if you get the appraisal and all of that done within the 10 days, are you still able to then negotiate the price though?
So the cancellation within the 10 days, literally, if you read section 14B1 of the contract, the reasons, it doesn't state any specific reasons why the buyer can cancel. In fact, it says that since it doesn't state any reason the buyer can cancel, the buyer can literally cancel for any reason.
Okay.
So in that 10-day window. Now, once this contingency date is hit, so let's say we opened escrow today on the 3rd, 10 days, the 13th, our contingency would be up on inspection. It doesn't just end on that 3rd day, on that 13th. It actually takes another form called a contingency release to be signed by the buyer, and then that officially releases that contingency. So if for some reason it goes 15 days or to the 15th or to the 17th, if the seller doesn't require us to release it, then we actually get an extension on that period. Because sometimes things come up, like it's maybe you have a problem in scheduling an inspector, and because of that it gets delayed. So normally we ask for an extension of the contingency, but it automatically extends if the buyer hasn't signed off on a contingency period. So to answer your question, can we negotiate the price in that window? Yes, we actually can. We could come back and say, look, you know what, based upon our due diligence, we don't have to say that it's because of the appraisal. Based upon our due diligence, we don't want to pay that price. We want to renegotiate. And the seller would say yes or no. Most likely in this market would say no, because they have 7, 8, 10 other offers, right?
Yeah.
But yes, so to answer your question, that price can be renegotiated in that window.
Okay.
Just like it would be if for some reason we found out that it needed a new HVAC system, needed a new HVAC system, air conditioning and heating. We could come and say, look, you know what, we want the seller to pay $5,000 towards a new HVAC system.
Sure.
Now, if you were to do that, the credit would actually go towards the closing cost, not the HVAC system. And then after close of escrow, the buyer would have paid less in closing costs to be able to pay to have that inspection put in. Otherwise, if you say it's the $5,000 is towards an HVAC system, the bank is going to require you to actually replace that HVAC system before close of escrow.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So whenever you're writing an offer and it includes a credit towards the buyer, you always make it towards the closing costs.
Okay.
So we have our MLS open, and we have the where you access the library of documents is CAR, C-A-R, which is California Association of Real Estate.
Yeah.
So realtors, that's car.org. You click on the button right here, which is see here, one sec. Yeah, you click right here on transactions, and then down here you can see transactions zip form edition. We're gonna hit transactions there again. I've got my login credentials already saved. Takes a little bit to get in here. There's a couple different ways into the forms library, but I'm showing you the way I always go.
Sure.
And I have my MLS open with the properties open because I'm going to copy and paste some information into the zip forms. So this is going to give me a couple of disclaimers. It's asking me if I want to renew my commercial forms. And I'm going to say no. So most of the time you wouldn't probably get that message that'll pop up on here. And so you can see all the transactions that we've written offers for. Now, let's say I had already written an offer for this client, like Troy Lee here. You can see I can come over here and click this and actually copy, excuse me, copy this transaction. Okay. And then I don't have to, his name and everything is in there. I would just have to change the dates and change the property. And
Sure.
I could just kind of, go. But since I haven't written an offer for Jesse, we're going to start from scratch here. So we're going to click the new.
Okay.
And we're going to do a new purchase offer, which is this one right here. And over here, now before we do that, I'm going to come over here to the, let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to come over here to the MLS. And we'll start with Balboa first, because this is the one we have to get in sooner. So we'll get this one. Now I'm going to copy this address, Control C. I'll come back over here and I'm going to just paste it in here. And I usually do, you can see I put the name of the client as first in the name here. So Jessie. Now her name I actually have on my phone here because she texted me she's Filipino. So her name, I wanted to make sure that her name was spelled properly because we want to use her legal name. So her legal name is and I call her Jessie, but her legal name is Jesusa.
Sure.
So it's Jesusa, and the last name is Maria de Vera. And then I put a little dash like that. So that's the format I use. You can use whatever format you want to use. Obviously, I've been doing this 16 years, and so I've created habits around certain things. So I always put the name dash, and I always put spaces, after to kind of give it a little separation. And then this is residential, and it's an active property. And now down here, I have some templates created. Now you may not have templates in yours. I'm pretty sure if you want, I can export my templates and and you can import them into yours, into your zip forms. But you can see here I have some templates, and what in the templates, that just means that I've preset some things like, maybe a transaction fee, or I've preset my information in there, so I don't have to load my information every time it comes in. So the RPA is the residential purchase agreement standard. That's what we're going to use. And once you're done that, you hit save. And so this brings us into kind of like the dashboard here of the actual folder or file, or envelope, you might call it, whatever you call it, for Jessie. And then as part of that is the documents tab. Okay, and that it loads in 2 forms that are part of that template. And so if I click on here on residential purchase agreement, this is where it starts up. Now the residential purchase agreement is actually made up of several different forms. Now on Wednesdays, you're going to want to go to the contracts class. Are you starting to get emails yet from EXP with classes and stuff that's happening?
Yeah, I have actually, yes.
Lots. So you probably, one of the ones you want to pay attention to is the weekly training calendar. And that comes out usually on Sunday.
Okay.
That one's one you want to pay attention to because the Fast Start 101 is on there. It'll tell you when it is, and the 201 and all the subsequent courses. But the contracts class for our California state broker is on there as well. And that's every Wednesday at, I believe it's 9:30 to 11.
Okay.
So you're going to want to go to that every week because every week they take a different form. So like they might do 1 week on the one day on the RPA, and the next one they might break down the AD1 and the different parts of the RPA. And then after that, they might do the contingency release. They'll do that form. Sure. And then the next week they do, so they go through and it's in a loop. So when you go through all of them, you'll start at the beginning again. You just want to keep doing it until you're really comfortable with the contract.
Sure. Okay.
The contract, all the addendums, all the possible forms and add-ons, like a COP, which is contingency of purchase. That's if the buyer is buying contingent upon, another property selling, or if the seller is selling, but there's an seller's purchase of replacement property, SRPR. And that's if, the seller is saying, look, I'll sell my home, but I got to find a home first. That's what we call home of choice. So all these extra addendums that could go on there, they will go through all of those within the contracts class.
Okay.
Okay. You can also come to this form advisor and the forms tutor right here. Okay. And if you go forms advisor, it actually brings up a purchase, and you can find the different form that you're looking at, and it's got a whole video on that form. So you can do the knowledge base here, or you can also do You know, there's all sorts of information about the individual forms here on the forms tutor. Here's access forms advisors and forms tutor. That's how you access those. And when you go into the form, it's got a whole video series. Looks like it's actually taking me back into my library. It is. I don't know why I did that, but so that's a good place to learn as well, is the forms advisor and the forms tutor. So like down at the bottom of each form right here on the header, on the footer, I mean, is what the form is and how many pages and the acronym for it. So you heard me use AD, right? And that's the agency disclosure is what this form is. And it's 2 pages. The second page is a statute, is the actual civil statute, the civil code. And there is no place that needs to be signed on page 2, but you just need to know that the AD has 2 pages to it, right?
Yeah.
Everything in yellow is where you see that we need to fill out. Like you see right here, there's a little place that's in yellow here. Now, obviously this says if checked, this form is being used in connection with a leasehold, which is a lease. We're not using a lease. We're not doing a lease, so I won't be checking that. But anywhere you see yellow, anywhere that's a variable that needs to be filled out or something needs to be filled out would be right there in the yellow. So down here, we're going to go ahead and plug in our clients' names. Let me get their names again. So USA, Maria, oops, and Devera. And then you can use tab, you know, you can use tab or you can use your mouse. If you tab, it goes, you know, it goes through the form pretty easily. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. I know you're a pretty sharp guy, Kyle, so I'm not going to have to worry about that stuff with you, but you'd be surprised.
No, gotcha.
Oh, and I just started writing your name.
Oh, I was going to say, is it Kyle too?
Danilo Devera. Now we're going to DocuSign this. You'll see up here what says e-sign. So I've connected my DocuSign account to this. If you don't have a DocuSign account, you get a free digital ink account with you know, with your membership to CAR. I personally like DocuSign in the way it functions, so I pay extra to have that account.
Okay.
It functions better with the team as well, which I have a big team, so everybody kind of uses the DocuSign account.
Okay.
So when it comes time, once this template is already, the boilerplate is already filled out, then we come over here to e-sign, and that's where we start the signing process. So I've checked that box. You can see this is all part of the template. Like I told you, my name and information is already in there. So I'm just going to scroll through here. This is a civil. Go ahead. You have a question?
Good question, and maybe this isn't the right time for it, but
no, perfect. That's why I'll have you on here. Fire away.
2 things. What if there's more than 2 buyers or sellers? You know, like is there an additional? And then also too, like what if they're purchasing it but like under a trust or an LLC or something?
Perfect. Great. Those are 2 great questions. You would put the 2 names here, and then you would do an additional signature form. And so the way you would find that is you come over here to all forms up here in the corner. Like when you get to this place, you're like, oh, okay, you know what? I've got 2 other people that need to sign.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect place to make that realization. And you'd come over here to all forms and you'd go additional, and you'd see additional signature addendum right here. And you'd click that, and it's going to load it in right in the moment. Now we're not going to actually use it, but I just wanted to answer your question. So that's how you do it. Now you would actually go through and fill out this form as well. It's a 1-page form.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's say you realize, oh, you know what? I don't actually need this. Then you're just going to come back over here to back, and there's that additional, and you can actually just remove that form.
Okay, gotcha.
Right here, or you can leave it in there. It's not going to hurt. When you go to
sign, you could just not include it, right?
You just not include that form. Exactly. So then the other question you asked was about what if I have an entity versus a person?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna scroll ahead to answer that question. You would actually write in here the name of the entity. So if it's a trust, It could be the Policino trust. And if it's got a date on it, dated whatever, then that would be included in the legal name of the trust. I do see some trusts that don't have a date. So I'm not really sure the significance of the date, but it could be the Policino Family Trust. So then it would say the Policino Family Trust, but that triggers a thing that you need to understand is that's an entity, not an individual. So how do we know that I, Jesse DeVera, have the right to sign on behalf of a trust named the DeVera Family Trust, for example? We don't know that unless we've gotten copies of the actual trust. And then there's a form called the RCSD-B. The RCSD-B is for the buyer. There's an RCSD-S for the seller. The residential capacity signature disclosure. And what that form says, and I'll show you where that triggers it, and I'll scroll ahead real quick here. At the end of the offer, there's a place that says, is this offer being made on the behalf of an individual or an entity? And we're going to right here at the signature page. So you see Jesse DeVera, and you see this little box right here. So it's a pretty obscure little box, but that's why you really need to know your contract. I always make the reference, your contract is kind of like your weapon. That literally, if you got to know your weapon, every angle of it, right? And when you're going into battle, the battle is getting your offer accepted with the seller. You need to know and understand how to use that weapon and how to write the cleanest offer, how to use like this whole thing with the appraisal contingency, how you could actually do it without the appraisal contingency. I'll show you another place where agents make a common mistake under the interest rate. They put an interest rate on there, and seasoned agents like myself hate it because I have to counter that out. And so we want to make it as clean as possible so that we don't have to, the least amount of things that the seller has to counter, the seller's agent has to counter, the better, right? Okay. That's a clean offer. So when you check this, it loads the RCSD. And then part of the RCSD says you will get a copy of the actual trust. And then the other side, when they accept it, they should ask us for a copy of the trust. Okay. Or at least minimum the RCSD addendum, which we're certifying that we've viewed the trust and made sure that this person has the capacity to sign for the entity. Okay. Now that's a trust. Now, if it's an LLC or a corporation buying, then it's even more important. We just did a transaction recently where the seller signed on behalf of the corporation that owned the property. We represented the buyer. We made the offer, and we checked on there that we wanted an RCSD because we went on and checked to see who the seller was. And we knew in advance who the seller was, so we knew that it was a corporation. So we made sure that we asked for the RCSD. Even we put that as an addendum to the contract, so that when the seller would come back signed by the seller, they would include that addendum. When they included the addendum, they didn't give us a copy of the trust, and we didn't. So we had no verification that this person signing had the capacity to sign. Sure, so we countered basically asking for a copy of the trust. So there is no verbal real estate. You've got to put everything in writing. Yeah. Even the simplest things like the stove stays needs to be put in writing. Otherwise, I mean, I had somebody take in an escrow, took a tree from the backyard. They literally, and this was a good sized tree that could be around. And it says right in the contract that trees and bushes and shrubs and things affixed to the ground are part of the property. They can't remove those. Same with the stove. A stove there's a box to be checked for the stove. So if they just took the stove, they would be breaching the contract. Yeah. Okay. So does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. And you said so that box then populates another form. So
yeah. So let me go back there.
Yeah.
Let me go back there and uncheck that form so we don't.
Okay. Yeah,
now, how do we know that the seller is not an entity? How do we know?
what would you look up what it shows on title?
Yeah, and the way we do this is a property profile. So in the MLS, we can click on the APN number or the address, and it pulls up a Realist property profile for us. And we can see here Judith Adams is the owner of the property. And we're going to copy that right there. So I just took that and I copied it. And now I'm going to go back over here to my agreement. And why am I doing that? Because I'm going to go here to where it says seller right there. And I'm going to plug in Judith's name.
Gotcha.
So that just tells me I checked that and I know now it's not an entity.
Yeah.
And Judith's name will appear on the contract. And so, all right, so we'll go back here. So part of the AD, part of the RPA is the AD. The AD is a form on its own, but it's part of the agreement, the RPA agreement package. When we download that or import it into our transaction, it comes with all of these things. The other thing it comes with is the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory, and this is the advisory that talks about the 5 protected classes and how you can't have discrimination against those. You know, the seller or buyer can't discriminate against those classes. So this is a disclosure. And so I always separate out when I'm having the client sign. I explain to them, look, here's the 14 or 15 pages of the actual contract. All the rest of this stuff is disclosures. Yeah. And I point out to them the difference, because when they sign a disclosure, they're not signing in a contract. They're signing something that's disclosing to them certain information. For example, this is all about what discrimination looks like. That's the purpose of this disclosure. They're not agreeing to something by signing here. They're just agreeing that they've been put on notice what discrimination is.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah. So page, this is called the FHDA, and it's 2 pages. And it does have a signature, which you just saw me. Now, I'm not dating these. And the reason I'm not dating these is when I go through the signing process with DocuSign, that's where we'll date them. Because I could send this to the buyer today and they may not sign it today, they might sign it tomorrow. Yeah. And that date will change automatically through the signing process, where if I dated it here, it wouldn't change. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And just, again, stop me with any questions. That's kind of why I'm doing it this way, because I know for the other people that are watching this video, sure, they may have questions too, but you're asking questions and you're looking at this for the first time. This is brand new for you. And I figured by doing this on video, I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel, The Real World of Real Estate. And then also other people will have access to it. You'll be able to watch it back if you want to watch it back and remember, you know, to answer questions. So sure, yeah. On this, go ahead. What was that?
Oh, no, I was acknowledging.
Yeah. Zoom doesn't, it's like you can't talk at the same time. Yeah. You end up stepping over each other. Yeah. Anyways, so what's missing on here is the seller's broker. My broker's already in there. The seller's names are already there, our license number. So now we're going to go back over to the MLS, and we're going to click on, we're going to slide down here to the end of the thing. We're going to grab her name, Control C, and we're going to come back over here to the buy, and that's where the brokerage firm goes in there, and then the name goes in there. We're going to come back over here, and we're going to grab her license number, which is right here. Control C, and we're going to put that right here. Control V. Back over here and grab the firm name now, Coldwell Banker. Control C, and we're going to put that there. And then we're going to come back over here and grab the firm license number, Control C. And we're going to put that there. Again, we're going to leave the dates. So that's all that has to be done on this form. So the next is the wire fraud. Now you notice the address didn't pull through. So we're going to come over here and we're going to go back to this address and we're going to pull the address again. Actually, I grabbed the whole thing in case I need to know the zip code too. Control C. And we're going to do this. And you're going to notice when we do this, oh, that's weird. It doesn't normally do that. I wonder why it's doing that. That doesn't normally do that. So 7320 Balboa Boulevard, unit number, unit number 125. So 7320. Now see how it pops up, populates an address here?
Yeah.
You want to actually pick the address because it validates the address for you to make sure that it's the right address. Okay, so 7320 Balboa Boulevard. Well, we have an Encino option, but we don't have a Lake Balboa option. So what does that tell you? It's actually Encino. So you could make it, yeah, so you can make a choice here of either going by what the MLS says or going by what the address validation says.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and put Lake Balboa and go by the MLS.
Okay.
And then it's 91406. Yeah, if you wanted to, you could come over here and you could open up another thing and go 91406, zip code, and see what it comes up as. And it comes up as, it's actually the city of Los Angeles because there is no city of Encino.
Correct.
Or the city of Lake Balboa. So they're called areas. We call them areas. They're not a legal description. We know that we're going to use them as long as the appraisal matches what the contract says. It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
We could put Los Angeles on here. We wouldn't be wrong. We could put Encino. We probably wouldn't be wrong either.
Mm-hmm.
But why create a mismatch? So I'm just going to make the choice to go by the contract. But just understand that Los Angeles, I could put Los Angeles, but then if the appraiser puts Lake Balboa because he goes by the MLS, then I have a mismatch, and then it causes a problem within the lending side of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep it and make it keep it to match the MLS.
Okay.
What
does it say on the profile?
Yeah, that's another place you could look but what does the profile say exactly? It says Los Angeles. It says Van Nuys. It says Van Nuys actually.
A few different things here.
So yeah, I mean, this is on the west side of the 405. I don't think it's Van Nuys, which is interesting. The property profiles can be wrong too.
Yeah.
Like I learned this because I had a transaction where the bedrooms and bathrooms were wrong, and I thought the bedrooms, bathrooms square footage came from the title. It doesn't actually come from the title. It comes from the tax records.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the tax records sometimes are wrong.
Yeah.
Or go way back when maybe it was a 3+2 and somebody ripped out a bathroom or something, and now it's a 3-1 or now it's a 2-1 because they made changes, you know what I mean? And somewhere along the way, and the property profile got updated or didn't get updated, whatever the situation is. But the title really is just the name of the property, and it's a legal description of where that property is located. That's the official title record. And if you scroll down here on this property profile, you can also find the legal description as well. If you come up here to launch Realist, this is like an abbreviated version. This is the full version of Realist. And if you look here, a lot of times it'll show you the legal description. There's the dimensions of the lot, but actually doesn't show the legal description on this one here, figures. Yeah, legal description right here. You know what I mean? That doesn't say anything about what's built on the property.
Yeah.
That happens in the tax records. So back over here, so we got our address plugged in there, and it's not validated, but that's okay. Sometimes you'll get an error that tells you, it needs to be validated, but not always. Okay, here's the date. So you just double click the date, and it's going to put today's date in there. And then we need so starting from the top here, we're just kind of scanning. Okay, well, the city here, and this is the county. So the county is Los Angeles. Okay, and then we're going to come over here and get the APN number. because that's what this field is right here, the assessor's parcels number. So I'm
Okay.
just making sure that there's not any blank fields. So I usually take the APN number off of the profile because it's got the dashes in it in the right place. Where if you look at the MLS,
Oh,
it
it's just
puts
all
it in
along.
without the dashes.
Gotcha.
So I personally do it. This is how I do it, and everybody writes offers differently, by the way.
Sure.
So, you can learn by watching, by, asking different people. My wife writes them completely different than I do. In fact, it frustrates her the way I write offers. But same with searching properties. Searching properties, you'd be surprised actually how people do it differently. Okay, so coming down here, we've got the agencies already in here. These boxes are really important. You want to make sure these are checked. So this is saying Coldwell Banker is representing the seller. Jessica is the seller's agent. EXP is representing the buyer, and the agent is representing the buyer. And then down here, more than one broker represents the buyer or seller. We're not dual agencies, so we're not going to check this box here.
Okay.
Now, they just redid the contract last year. All of these variables that you see here on page 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, really 4, are all the variables for all the contracts. These used to be spread out through the entire agreement. In every section, there was a variable, every section. And so to streamline it and make it easier, the infinite wisdom of the California Association of Real Estate, which is made up of agents like us and lawyers, got together and streamlined this. So this is a brand new contract effective this year for everybody. And all the variables are on these first 2 pages. So instead now, all you have to remember is section D2, and you can go to section D2 actually in, where is that? That was section, go back to D2. So that's section 3, allocation of cost, D2. And then you see here, well, okay, well, where is section D2? What is that variable for? And the interesting thing here is every section, like you see 5 has A, B, C, there's section 6 has A, B, section 7 has a D, but it doesn't have a D2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And up here, it's really not clear. And I just noticed this in explaining this to you. It's really not clear where this D2 and D1 actually exist. What number do they exist in?
Oh, are they?
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say, so above each of those, if you scroll back up, what's
Yeah,
the
items
those.
included. Yeah, but see, it's still calling them by a letter N versus M. And if you look here, it's just using increased deposit. D2, this increased deposit is actually talking about here, is talking about where the price and such go, which is actually in here as well. I just kind of asked I was gonna answer a question. You didn't ask the question. I was just gonna tell you where to find these individual sections, and I'm realizing it's a little bit confusing to even me, who's familiar with the agreement. Section D2, for as an example, is the increased deposit, which we haven't even plugged in a price yet. The price goes right here, where it used to be in that section, increased deposit. So this section D2, or actually paragraph 5A2, there it is. So they're calling this section D2 of this section, but right here is the actual contractual paragraph. So 5A2, if you wanted to go find that, let's say your client asked you a question, what does the increased deposit mean? What is this actually saying? You'd have to go here to 5A2.
Okay, gotcha.
And then see right here what it says, refers to paragraph 3D2, and which is back up there where we just were.
Right, yeah.
So an increased deposit, just to give you an example, is basically if I'm putting 3% down, right? The 3% deposit. not the down payment. The down payment might be 20% down, which is what Jesse's doing, 25%. But the deposit is the earnest money deposit. That's typically 3%. Well, let's say I only have 1% in the bank right now, and the other 2% is coming from my 401k. Then an increased deposit addendum gets added, and what you're and spells out on that form that 1% is going in now, 2% is going to come in 7 days, coming from a 401k, and all 3% are subject to the liquidated damages clause of the contract. That's what the increased addendum says.
Okay.
But if I deposit 5% in deposit, only 3% is going to be subject to liquidated damages. That's also what an increased deposit form says. It explains all that.
Okay.
Because the contract has a liquidated damages section, which says a maximum of 3% is subject to the liquidated damages clause. So that's how you look at this table here. Is the left-hand column is using the reference as section D1 of section 3 D.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
But the contract reference is actually the second column, and then you go through. So let's just start at the top. So our price is 508. So we're going to go ahead and just plug that in. We're just going to go down from here. Is it all cash? No. So we're not going to check that. Under B, is it close of escrow? So close of escrow days after acceptance. How many days did we say we're going to give the client? We're going to give them 30 days after acceptance. Or I'm sorry, close of escrow will be 30 days, but we're going to give them 30 days of a rent back, right? So that's called seller in possession after close of escrow. So we would include an SIP. Now, if you go over 30 days, you got to actually use a lease agreement, an RLA, which is a residential lease agreement, instead of an SIP. SIPs are good for 29 days or less. So what do you think we're going to do on this offer?
Wait, I'm sorry. Well, then we could use the SIP, right?
We're gonna put 29 days or less. Yeah, that way we can use the SIP versus a full-blown lease agreement.
Correct. Yeah.
So but this section here is saying basically close of escrow is going to be how many days. I don't typically check this and put in 30 like that, because how do I know if that 30th day falls on a Saturday or a Sunday or not?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do it that way. I actually leave this blank and I put in here and I put in the actual date. And so the way I always go is I go 30 days. So 1, 2, 3. So here's 4 weeks. And then I just go to the Friday of that week. So 3 weeks is 21, 30 would be that next day. And then, so it's a little bit over 30 days, but that's okay.
Okay.
It falls on a Friday. Now, see how it did the date?
Yeah.
There's a glitch in the system. I'm not really sure, but nobody seems to like that date. It always
no, it looks super funky, but I get it.
So I always change it like that.
Oh, can you? Oh, okay.
You can double click on it and it'll change it. See, I just changed it.
Yeah.
And so, but sometimes it changes back. So,
oh yeah, because now you have it at today.
Yeah. See, so we want June 3rd. So 6/03.
There you go.
You have to type it in for it to really stick. So expiration offer, we're going to leave this as the standard 3 days. This is just basically saying that after our offer comes in, it expires within 3 days if it's not accepted. The initial deposit, we talked about being 3%. So we're going to actually take a calculator and figure out what 3% is. So 508 times 3% is 15,240. So we're going to plug that in. And then it's going to tell us right here that it's 3%. And then we're going to say, if we were going to change something, if the client wanted to write a check, we would have to change the terms. Otherwise, it's defaulted to a wire, which we always tell the clients, you know, wire, just the seller's asking it for it to be wired. It's just easier that way. There's a record of it. Cashier's checks, you have to wait for them to clear. Most escrow companies won't take a personal check. So in this one, we're not doing an increased deposit. We already talked about what that looks like. Loan amount, we know that she's putting 25% down. So we're going to take the total of 508 and we're going to take 75% times 75%, which is 381, is our loan amount. Because if she's putting 25% down, that leaves 75%. So that just shows you the loan amount is 75%. This is that part I was telling you about interest rates. A lot of agents make a mistake and they plug a rate in here. This is an additional contingency. This is basically you're saying that if rates go up beyond a certain point, my client is not going to buy. Okay. Now in this market right now, you might actually consider putting that in there because interest rates are so volatile right now. There, you know, I just quoted one today. Jesse, actually 25% down, 5.75%. We're almost at 6% right now. 3 weeks ago, a month ago, we were at 3.25%. So the rate is in flux right now, but we're gonna leave this blank because we don't want to create something that the seller's agent's gonna have to counter out. The other thing that's the percentage that it's asking for is how many points the buyer is paying. So you could put in here a contingency that said the buyer's not going to pay more than 1% in points. Again, we're not going to put that in there because it's going to make it offer less clean. We're also not FHA, we're not VA, so we're not checking any of those boxes. We're not doing an adjustable rate. We're just going to make sure that before Jesse releases her inspection contingency, that she has determined that her rate has been locked in and she's comfortable with it. That's all we need to do because she can cancel for any reason in that first 10 days. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
And I just got your message. So you do need to jump off for a meeting?
I didn't want to like interrupt the video.
No, it's totally fine.
No,
and
yeah, I have a meeting that's going to take me about half an hour, 45 minutes.
Okay, great. We'll jump off. Enjoyed having you on here with us, and then I'll share this video with you so you'll be able to watch the video back, the rest of it.
No, thank you very much. It was extremely helpful, and I do want to finish the video. Thank you so much.
All right, Kyle. We'll see you later.
All right, take care.
Yep. So going through finishing now on where we were at, we were just leaving off here on the loan amount. So loan amount, like I said, we're not going to fill these out because these would cause you to have to potentially get a counter from the seller. And again, if you determine that the rate's locked within the 10-day contingency period, you don't really need this contingency. So we're going to leave those blank. Coming down here to section E2, additional amount financed. If the buyer was getting an additional loan from somebody outside, like a second loan or a third loan, then you would include these additional amounts. This buyer is not. Occupancy type is primary. It's defaulted to primary, so we don't need to put anything there. If it was an investment property, then you would check investment here. And so that concludes that section. You can see here the buyer is going to initial these pages here. Coming to the next section. This is section G. And so seller credit, are we asking up front for the seller to credit the buyer anything? No, we're not. So we're going to leave this blank. Any additional terms here? We could write in here that the buyer is willing to allow the seller to rent back for a maximum of 29 days. Okay, so we could put, I'm going to put that in right here. Buyer agrees that seller has the option to rent back or to remain in possession for a maximum of 29 days. And then we're going to say C form SIP. Okay, and that's going to make that in there for the agent to see. So verification of all cash, This is talking about proof of funds from the buyer. We're going to submit that with the offer. This says we have 3 days to do it, which we're going to submit it with the offer. So we'll have done that. Verification of down payment. We will submit that within the 3 days. That's the proof of funds as well. Verification of loan application. We're going to submit a buyer loan letter from the lender saying that the buyer's financials have been reviewed and they've submitted a loan application. That's also going to be taken care of right up front. But we're just going to leave those blank, and we're going to check here pre-qualification. And that's in that box. Now, a pre-approval, the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification is having the underwriter actually look at it. Then they issue a conditional loan approval. If you had that already, you could actually check pre-approval, which makes your offer a little bit stronger. There's the difference between a fully underwritten approval and a pre-approval. Some lenders have a secondary, the loan officer gives a pre-approval, and then there's an underwritten approval, which is a second layer of underwriting. And that's what the difference is there. So final verification of condition, that's the final walkthrough. Prior to close of escrow, within 5 days, we're going to do our final walkthrough. We're going to leave that blank. Assignment request within 17 days. We're going to leave that one standard as well, saying that if the buyer wants to assign the contract to somebody else, they can within 17 days. Loans, we're gonna leave the loan approval, the loan contingency approval at 17 days. We're gonna check off here non-contingent upon appraisal. This is where I was explaining earlier that you can actually make your offer look stronger by removing your appraisal contingency and just getting your appraisal done within the 10-day contingency period. So that's what we're going to do here with this client. So investigation of property, we're going to change this to 10 days. And then informational access to the property. This is a new section. We're going to leave this to be up to literally the last, we're going to say 30 days, so that we can continuously go in. Now that could get countered out because this is a new section. Some agents are aware of this section, and to prevent their sellers from being interrupted during the moving process, they limit the amount of access, saying that the buyer can only come in for the first 2 weeks, and then they don't get to come again until the final verification 5 days before. But I'm going to go ahead and change that to 30. Actually, I'm gonna leave that at 17, just to, to keep it, make it cleaner offer. Review of seller documents. We have 17 days to review the seller documents. That means the seller has 17 days to give them to us, but we are only doing a 10-day investigation. So I'm going to change this to 10 days to match our investigation period. Same here. We're going to investigate the preliminary title report within 10 days. We're going to also do any HOA documents within 10 days, and we're going to review any leased or lien items within 10 days as well. Sale of buyer's property. We're not actually selling a property, so we don't have to worry about this. But if we were, we would check that box right there for the COP. Time of possession, we're saying that we're going to give possession at 5 p.m. And we're going to say, this has to do with the seller occupied units, and a seller is calling it a TOPA. I'll have to look. I said SIP, that's seller in possession, and I'll have to look to see what a TOPA is. In fact, let's just check that box right now so that it'll bring the TOPA into the agreement. That's tenant occupied property. So we're going to actually uncheck that, because this property is not occupied by a tenant. It's occupied by a seller that wants to stay in there for up to 29 days. So possession upon notice of recordation or 6 p.m. on that day, or tenant occupied property. So we're going to actually leave this blank and specify if applicable. We're going to actually say at 5 p.m. We're going to put that in there, and we're going to say 5 p.m. But it's not going to be on recordation. It's going to be on specified by the counteroffer and the SIP. So these two we don't have to change. Seller occupied units, we're going to actually check this box, and we're going to put the 29 days right here, which is going to give us the SIP. It just loaded it into the agreement because we put something here. So 5 p.m. on the 29th day after close of escrow is what this now says. Okay. We could actually take this off and put 6 p.m. here. Yeah, 6 p.m. on the 29th day. Okay, next section is seller delivery of documents. We have 10 days to review these documents. Just keeping the days shorter. They have 7 days to give us the document. They have 5 days to give us the provisions and escrow instructions. They have 3 days to sign the HOA documents and order them, and they have 7 days to install smoke detectors. We're going to leave all those standard. We're going to come down here and say the stove is to be included. And this unit, we're not going to ask for the refrigerator just because I don't know whether it's included or not. But if it was, we can actually come over here to the agreement here and see what was included. And appliances range doesn't mention, oh, refrigerator is listed there. So you could include it because it's listed there. So we're going to go ahead and include it. So refrigerator and microwave are checked. Okay. So if there's anything being excluded, we would put that in here. Natural hazards disclosure. This is an allocation of cost section. So who's going to pay for the natural hazard disclosure? And we're going to ask the seller to pay for it because that's typically who pays for it. So we're going to say seller. Now, who is it going to be issued by? And we get to choose. We could say seller's choice, or we could choose here. I personally would just leave seller's choice. It makes it cleaner. Here under this section, we're going to put here under Q2, this is where you would put a termite inspection if you wanted one. We're going to leave that off. I'm going to tell the buyer that they can do their own termite inspection unless they want me to revise the offer, which I will, but I'll just leave that as is for now. Smoke detectors, it's the seller's responsibility to do that. Governmental retrofits, it's the seller. Governmental point of sale items is the seller. Escrow fees, we're going to say both, each to pay their own. Section, we're going to say seller's choice here. Okay. And owner's title, we're going to say it's the seller's responsibility. If there's any endorsements, the second one is the endorsements are going to be handled by the buyer. That's the lender endorsements. And there sometimes is. Title insurance, we're going to say seller's choice again. City and county transfer tax is the seller's responsibility. HOA is already defaulted to seller, and HOA certification fee is buyer. HOA transfer is seller. Private transfer fees, there's probably not any if applicable. I usually put NA because I'm not aware of there being any, and they're just typically not applicable. Here is if any other fees. Now we do have a buyer's transaction fee, and this is how you can have the buyer and sellers pay for you to have a transaction coordination fee. So we're going to put in here seller $500 fee, and it's going to be buyer side transaction fee. We could actually shorten that up. I'm not sure if it's gonna. We could actually just shorten that up like that if we wanted to. That way it fits. And then the second one, here's the home warranty. This one we get to pick because we're going to deal with the client for the next year. And so we want the home warranty company to be somebody that we feel is reputable, and we have a rep that we can deal with. So we pick the home warranty company, but the seller is going to pay for it. And we're asking them to pay up to $490. And if you wanted to make this $600, you could make it a little bit more just in case there's any appliance coverage or anything else that needs to be added in there. You can actually specifically go to the home warranty company and look up the actual price of what the policy covers if you'd like to as well. But if the policy only costs $500, the seller will only be billed for that $500. Okay, so Next section here is any additional addendum. So we already know that we're going to include an SIP. So we're going to put other and put SIP. There and the SPQ and SBSA. So we're going to check SBSA there. We're going to also put here SPQ for seller property questionnaire, because that's not listed here. And there are no other additional addendums that we're going to put on here that are needed. All the other ones are defaulted, are already checked. So that's pretty much it for the RPA. Once you've done that, then you can kind of scroll through and you can get to the end here, the signature blocks, and make sure everything's filled out properly. This is where they initial for liquidated damages. And this is where, if there was an arbitration company you wanted to put in there, you could. We're going to leave that blank. We know we don't have we don't need the RCSD for a trust, because they're not buying in the trust. We already know the sellers are not buying in a trust, so we don't need that as well. And we get down here to the bottom section, which is the agents and the real estate broker section, which everything should be filled out already. There's nothing here that needs to be filled out. We're not representing more than one buyer on the property, so we don't have to check those boxes. And then we're off. So that's it. So the 16 pages of this agreement, of this entire agreement, are the contract. All the rest are either advisories or disclosures. You can see here, buyer's investigation advisory. So we're just going to scroll through here and make sure everything's filled out. And there's the California Consumer Privacy Act notice. Everything's filled out there. And then we're at the end. So we can now hit save here, and we can come back out to the main list, and we're going to look for our we don't need this, and we don't need this, and and the other two forms we do need. So we're going to delete these forms. We don't need a wildfire disclosure either, so we're going to delete those. So these are the forms that we're going to get signed. So let's go to the seller in possession and make sure that is filled out properly. So this is kind of like a mini lease agreement. And so we're going to do this. It's in conjunction with the purchase agreement unless these boxes are checked. And so we don't need to check anything there. We don't need, the address is all filled out there. The term is going to be for 29 calendar days. Okay. And it's going, and then this is that section, possession at 6 p.m. It's already defaulted to 6 p.m. unless otherwise checked. Will there be any consideration given, like a security deposit? And the answer is no, we're not going to ask for a security deposit. And that's what this would be, that we would be paid into escrow or by a certain date. Late charges, if applicable, well, there's no rent due, so there isn't any late charges. Who pays the utility? So seller agrees to pay for all utilities unless it's otherwise noted here. So we're not going to change anything because we want the seller to pay for the utilities. Okay. And then will there be keys and other items included? So seller shall provide keys and other items necessary to access the property as required in the purchase agreement at close of escrow. So we're saying they're going to give us a set of keys at close of escrow. Okay. Or if checked at the end of the term. So we're not going to check that. We want keys up front just to have a set of keys. If there was anything else we needed to write in here, we would put it right here in this section. Otherwise, this form is complete. So we're going to hit save. We're going to come over here and check here and go to the statewide buyer and seller. Now, this is a long document. It's 14 pages, and the only place for anything to be signed is at the last page. So we're just making sure it's all filled out, which it is. So hopefully you're finding this video helpful. This is, again, my MLS, and in the California state system, which Zip Forms is pretty much an internet. It's probably a national platform. Most people use Zip Forms. So this is something that I can put on my channel here on the Real World of Real Estate so that you can utilize to be able to see how I write offers. And again, everybody writes them different. There is no right or wrong way other than making the offer really clean, like we talked about. I think if you don't take in consideration all these things to make it really clean, or you don't know how to write an offer, then you end up writing a sloppy offer, and that makes more work for the seller's agent. You could miss fields. I can't tell you how many times I get people that submit offers on my listings and there's missing fields, missing information, or inaccurate, or it's improperly stated in the contract because they just didn't take the time to learn the agreement. So we're at the point now we're ready to get this signed. Okay, and so we have the first offer is ready. Before we do that, we're going to come over here and we're going to come back out to the main offer, and we're going to write that second offer I told you about. And the way you do this is you come over here, and I just noticed I'm going to take and type in Jesusa. So there it is. So there's the one we just wrote. You come over here and you say copy. And you click the copy, and now all we have to change is the address. So we're going to come over here to our property and go to our second property, which is this one right here, and we're going to change everything that's pertinent to the property. So we're going to come over here and I'm going to change this here to this one. Okay, and we're going to include the forms and PDFs. We're going to leave the rest of it active. We're going to hit save. So all the forms and stuff, now you can see we have actually two transactions. Now the second transaction, we have to come in here and we have to come to the details here, and we have to change the address there as well. So we can take this, and this is Reseda, and the zip is different. What was the zip? Let's go back to, so it's 91335. So 91335, and the APN is different as well. Let's close this real list here. Close that, close that, close that. And let's click this. And while we're in here, we're going to look at the name. Now this is a trust. Great. We have an opportunity to look and see how we do a residential capacity disclosure. So we're going to start by taking the APN number first, Control C, and we'll come back over here and we're going to put that down here, Control V. So that just changed. And now we're going to come over here, or it's called the Irma J. Ortiz Trust. So that's Irma Ortiz. So we'll come over here and we'll come back over here to our documents. Go to residential purchase agreement, and we'll start at the very top again, and we'll come down and change this first name right here, which is where we put the Irma J. Ortiz Trust. Okay, so there's the trust there, and now we also have to come down here. And remember, this agent is different. So we're going to come over here to the MLS, and we're going to scroll down and grab the new agent's information. So there's the name of the agent, Control C, and we're going to put that in here, Control V. Oops, I actually didn't get the whole thing. Her name is Control C. Control V. There you go. And we're going to grab the license number. And we're going to change the license number there. And we're going to grab Avia Realestate, Control C, Control V. So you can get two examples of grab the license number here, Control C. Two examples of how to write an offer, basically, just the things we're going to change here, and then we'll wrap up. So once we did that, you could also grab the email address. I didn't mention that on the second, on the when I got to the last page here, which we need to go down to that page anyways, you could put in the email address here under the agent's information. I think there's a place for it. There used to be anyways. Oh, email right here. Yes, you could do this. Oops. You could do this by going there, and you could also do phone number as well. And I could put my email address here. And then okay. So let's go back up here to where we left off. And remember, we've got the license numbers, the agent's information in there. That address is correct in Reseda. We're coming down here. So all this is already done for us. It's already created. The terms of this are the same as the other property. There's no difference in the terms. The same price. So we don't have to change anything here. All of this is completely equal. Now we can take this out because this seller does not need the 29 days. So that is different. And so we can come up here and change the possession not to include that 29 days. Where is that section? Right here. We can actually take this off and put it back to a normal possession would be 6 p.m. on the date of recordation. Okay, so we can take that off. We're going to leave the time frames all the same. We're going to take off refrigerator because we don't know if refrigerator is included on this one. We can come here, dishwasher, microwave, disposal. There's no refrigerator there. So we're going to take the refrigerator off. And what else? Let's just scroll down. Transaction fee is going to remain the same. SIP, we can actually take this off here and just include the SPQ. And then that is pretty much it, other than the RCSD, which because it's in the name of a trust. So we're going to come all the way to the bottom here, and then I'm going to go show you how to DocuSign it. And then we'll wrap up. So we get back to, so right here, we know that the seller is an entity, and we don't know who is the signature, so we can't put the names in here because we don't know that. So, but we do know that it needs an RCSD, and we're going to go ahead and include that. So we're going to hit save, and then now we're going to come over here to our RCSD. And we're going to include an RCSD, and we want the one that says RCSD for buyer's representative. We want the one for seller's representative. So we're going to click that because the seller is the one that has the RCSD. So we're going to include this as an addendum in this offer. Okay. So do we need to check this box here? The disclosure in this form supersedes any legal authorized signer representation or representative capacity signature disclosure made in the agreement specified below on or below on a separate form. So we're not going to do that, and we're going to make this part of it, and we're going to say it's for a trust. And the full name of the trust is the Irma J. Ortiz Trust. And if Irma's alive, then the trust she'll sign for the trust. And if she's passed away, then there'll be somebody that will sign on her behalf. And we just need to know who that is. So our buyer will be signing this form. Actually looks like, yeah, the buyer signs right here. Yeah. So we can leave that blank. Seller and buyer. Yeah, there you go. Buyers are parties to this purchase agreement. And that's what's going to happen. Okay, so we're going to hit save here. You always have to hit save at the end. And then you're going to come back out here. And we're going to go ahead and get these signed. So let's go ahead and start with this one. We don't have to, I'll send the other one separately. We're going to start with the purchase agreement. And from the inside, you hit e-sign. And then you're going to click here, which is going to let you add other forms. So we're going to add the RCSD and the SBQ, and that's it. We're hitting next. And now here's where the emails go in. Now I need to get a copy of the email for Jessie, which I'm getting here. Okay, so I have her email. Her and her husband use the same email. You always want to try to get a separate email address for each person, but like this, they were insistent that they use the same email for signing legal documents. So mine is already in there as well. You can see, so you hit close, then you hit next. The signing order I always do inside the DocuSign envelope. So real quick here, let me just see what that. Okay, so we're in the side of DocuSign. I'm going to click back here, and I'm going to say in the subject line here, it's offer for Jesus Maria de Vera, Jesua de Vera, and it's got the address in there. And the signing order, we're going to check that. I'm going to mark them as both being ones and me being a two. Okay, and then we're going to hit next. And we're going to go through and make sure that the document is tagged properly. We could move these and adjust them a little bit if we needed to, because lately they've been coming up off the line for some reason. So I'm going to come through here, and I'm going to just change all these. I'm going to go through and pretty much everything should be tagged already by the system. And you can see these are a little low, a little high. I'm going to bring them down to where they're actually on the line. My little pet peeve, I guess. But this is how you just move the little tags. Yep. Okay. Probably have them edit this part of the building, part of the agreement, edit this part or fast forward through it. So it make it a little bit easier because you guys don't need it. Okay, now right here, the DocuSign always makes this an optional signature. So if you initial, so if you click on that and you say required, click on that and required, because these are required. And then same thing with arbitration, it makes it optional. The seller is going to require it, so I always require it. Leave those there. And we are almost done here. Okay, here you have to drop in that these are also not required. We need to make them required. And that is pretty much it. So this one is the 14-page document that goes all the way to the end. And you're just going to make sure that the signature in the right spot. None of the forms need to be initialed or anything like that. Okay. And we're at the point now we can hit send. So once we hit send, now it's gone off to the buyer to sign. And I'm just going to wait for them to sign. And then once it gets back, I'll send it to the seller along with the buyer proof of funds and the buyer loan letter. So I'm hoping this was helpful. We talked about some strategies. I'll give you one more strategy in closing, is you could actually put more down payment than the buyer actually is planning on putting down if they have proof of funds. So get as much proof of funds as possible. And if the buyer, the more down payment that the buyer is putting, the stronger the offer looks. So if they have enough to show 20% down, but they only want to put 3% down, that's between them and their lender. But on the offer, you get the proof of funds showing that they have the money to show the 20% down, and you write your offer with 20% down and then submit it that way. And then they can, at the end, when the loan funds, they will get funded for 97% of the purchase price, and the buyer's funds that will be needed to close will be 3%. The extra 17% that the buyer deposited into escrow will actually they'll never have to deposit that in escrow because the funding will come through at the 97%. So that's another example of a way you can make a stronger offer. If you have any, put a comment below. You can schedule with me. My phone number is also been scrolling across the page. If you'd like to call me anytime, schedule with me. I'd love to talk to you about your specific business. If you have any questions about writing offers, check this video out. And thank you for joining us on the Real World of Real Estate. My name is Sean Policino. We'll talk to you soon.